9 is left. Kurt Bevins said the last dart from Anderson didn't count. He'd stepped over the oche. And Peter Wright just questioning what's going on. Kurt Bevins making it quite clear. Said you stepped over the oche, Gary. That doesn't count.
They say referees are supposed to keep the peace, but in darts, even the officials can light the fuse. From shouting matches and rule disputes to moments where the whole match nearly collapsed over a single call, these are the 5 times players and referees clashed so hard it shook the stage. One dart fell, a crowd roared, and tempers exploded, but which moment pushed things the farthest? Let's find out. In darts, precision is everything. One wrong call, and an entire match can spiral into chaos. That's why what happened between Gary Anderson, Adrian Lewis, and legendary referee Ross Bray still gets talked about years later. It was a typical high-stakes showdown, the crowd roaring, the pressure thick in the air, and 2 of the sport's fiercest competitors locked in rhythm. Bray, known for his booming voice and nearly flawless record, was calling the scores with his usual thunderous energy. But then, it happened. Anderson stepped up, cool as ever, and threw his set. Bray looked down, announced 44, a second later, 43. Then he hesitated, frowned, and finally corrected himself. 41.
If it keeps happening,
44.
Dan,
43.
then we know for a fact it's going to have to be addressed.
41.
Ross Bray, a rare mathematical malfunction from the voice.
The crowd erupted, but not in the usual way. There was laughter, disbelief, and a few shocked gasps mixed in. Anderson turned around, eyebrows raised, and just started laughing. Then, with perfect comedic timing, he made a little hand gesture, pretending to punch numbers into an invisible calculator, as if to say, "You sure about that, Russ?" Even Adrian Lewis, usually laser-focused, couldn't help but grin. Bray himself cracked up too, throwing his arms up as if to say, "Hey, I'm only human." The moment instantly went viral across social media and highlight reels, not because of the mistake itself, but because of how rare it was to see Ross Bray, the man known for near-perfect accuracy, get it wrong. But underneath the laughter was a serious reminder. In professional darts, the referee's voice is law. If he calls a score wrong, even for a second, it can disrupt the player's flow, break concentration, and completely change the feel of the match. In a sport where rhythm and timing decide everything, that tiny pause can be a bigger threat than any opponent. Anderson handled it with humor, but not every player does. For some, a disputed call doesn't just ruin their rhythm, it lights a fuse. And in the next story, that fuse nearly blew up a whole match when one dart fell from the board and Michael van Gerwen made it clear he wasn't backing down. When you think of Michael van Gerwen, you think dominance, cold focus, killer precision, and a reputation that demands respect. But even the world #1 isn't immune to frustration, especially when he feels the rules get in the way of fairness. It was during a UK Open qualifier in 2018. Van Gerwen was in full control, firing darts with that unstoppable rhythm that made him nearly untouchable at the time. Then, in one split second, everything stopped. One of his darts landed, but barely. It was hanging loose, wobbling in the board. Then it fell. The referee made a ruling on the score, calling it invalid. To most players, it would have been a small moment, frustrating, sure, but part of the game, not for MVG. The Dutchman stepped back, stared at the board, and then turned toward the referee. You could almost feel the temperature drop in the room. He shook his head, argued that the dart had been in when he threw, that it only fell after the score should have been counted. The crowd started to buzz, unsure whether to cheer, laugh, or hold their breath. Play came to a halt. The referee stood firm, repeating the decision. But Van Gerwen wasn't done. He walked around, gesturing at the board, visibly frustrated. Cameras caught every second of it. It wasn't a meltdown, but a tense standoff, one that reminded everyone just how much intensity hides beneath that calm, confident surface.
Register as a score. Did he have the darts in his hand? Now, you have to retrieve your darts from the board for the score to count.
Michael, he had the hand in his darts.
Eventually, MVG took a deep breath, stepped back to the oche, and played on. And of course, he still won the match. But fans never forgot the moment. It wasn't about one dart, it was about control, authority, and the razor-thin line between confidence and confrontation. That brief pause showed just how easily the energy of a darts match can shift when the referee steps in. One call, one argument, and suddenly the world's most precise game turns into a battle of wills. But if Van Gerwen's standoff was tense, the next one got even louder, because this time, the fight wasn't between a player and a referee, it was between the referee and an entire crowd. Darts fans are some of the loudest, rowdiest, and most passionate in any sport, and that's part of what makes the atmosphere so electric. But sometimes, that energy crosses the line. In early 2025, during a Premier League night in Glasgow, two of the sport's brightest stars, Luke Littler and Luke Humphries, were facing off in a packed arena. The noise was deafening, the tension unreal, and then, the whistling started. At first, it was just a few shrill notes between throws. But soon, it turned into a wave echoing through the venue, breaking the players' rhythm and clearly throwing them off their game. Humphries stepped back, shook his head. Littler looked frustrated but tried to play on. That's when referee Kirk Bevins decided enough was enough. He turned toward the crowd and did something few referees ever dare to do. He grabbed his mic and addressed thousands of fans directly, telling them to stop whistling and respect the players. The arena went dead silent for a second, then half the audience booed, while the other half cheered.
Makes this not in it, 60 for tops.
59, stop whistling! Luca required 25.
That person needs to be careful because Kirk can do kung fu.
Ooh. The tension was unbelievable. The players tried to reset, but you could tell the energy had shifted. The focus was gone, replaced by a strange mix of anger and embarrassment. Even after the match, Littler admitted the interruption only made things worse, saying, "It threw me off even more when he said it." The clip spread like wildfire online. Some fans praised Bevins for standing up for the players. Others said he made himself part of the show. But one thing was certain, the moment proved how fine the line is between control and chaos in darts. The referee's job isn't just to count, it's to keep order. And sometimes, that means stepping right into the storm. Because when emotions run that high, even silence can explode into noise. But if you think a noisy crowd is tough to handle, wait until you see what happens when a player goes to war over the rules themselves, challenging the stage setup, the lighting, and even where their opponent stands. Every sport has that one player who refuses to stay quiet when something doesn't feel right. In darts, that man has always been Mervyn King. For years, King has built a reputation as one of the most precise, perfection-driven players on the circuit, and also one of the quickest to call out anything that seems even slightly off. He's the kind of player who'll notice if the oki, that thin line where players stand, is even a few millimeters out of place. If the lighting feels uneven, or if a draft crosses the stage, he'll stop the match and make sure it's fixed before throwing another dart. Some call it professionalism, others call it pure stubbornness. But either way, Mervyn King doesn't let things slide. One of his most talked about moments came during a match against Rob Cross, when King suddenly paused mid-leg and questioned whether Cross had stepped over the line during a crucial throw. The referee stepped in, but King wouldn't back down, his eyes locked on the oki, his voice calm but sharp. You could see the frustration on both faces, Cross trying to focus, the ref trying to de-escalate, and King absolutely refusing to play until he got an answer. The crowd didn't know how to react, some cheered, others booed, but everyone could feel the tension, and that's what makes King such a unique figure in darts. He's not trying to pick a fight. He's trying to protect the game as he sees it perfectly fair, perfectly precise, every time. Over the years, King's had countless moments like that. He's complained about stage lighting being too bright, about air conditioning creating drafts that could move a darts flight, even about crowd noise affecting concentration. And whether you think he's right or not, he's always forced officials to take a second look to make sure the conditions are as fair as possible. But this constant attention to detail hasn't just made him respected, it's also made him one of the most controversial figures among referees. Because when Mervyn King stops a match, it's not a short pause, it's a standoff. He won't throw another dart until he's satisfied that everything is perfect. It's a rare kind of tension, not explosive, but relentless. And it highlights one of the strangest truths about darts. Sometimes, the biggest battles aren't fought between two players, but between a player and the people enforcing the rules. But if you think Mervyn King's precision caused drama, the next story takes it even further. because in one sudden death leg, confusion hit both players and referees, and for a moment, nobody knew what was happening. Few moments in darts are as nerve-shredding as a sudden death leg. Every throw counts, every heartbeat matters, and one mistake by player or referee can flip everything. That's exactly what happened back in the 2014 PDC World Championship, during a clash between Cristo Reyes and Wes Newton. The match had gone the distance, 6 sets, tied at 3 apiece, until it all came down to one final leg to decide who moved on. The crowd was electric, chanting every throw, knowing they were about to witness something special. But before a single dart was thrown, confusion hit. According to the rules, when a match goes to sudden death, both players must throw for the bullseye to decide who throws first. Simple enough, except that this time, something went wrong. Both players hit the outer bull. The referee, Paul Hinks, appeared unsure whether a rethrow was needed. For a few seconds, everyone just stood there, the players looking back, the crowd murmuring, and Hinks glancing toward the scoring table. Then, to everyone's surprise, he told them to continue skipping the rethrow entirely. Reyes and Newton hesitated but obeyed, stepping up as if the match was back on, only for the officials to suddenly halt play mid-leg. They'd realized the rule had been misapplied. The players were called back to redo the bull-off properly. The tension in that arena was unreal. Some fans booed, others laughed, and the commentators were almost speechless. A single procedural mistake had turned the most crucial moment of the match into complete chaos. Thankfully, once order was restored, Cristo Reyes held his nerve and won the leg, but even after the victory, the conversation wasn't about his darts. It was about how the referees momentarily lost control of one of the most important moments of his career. The incident became a cautionary tale in darts officiating. It showed that even at the highest level, the pressure doesn't just live on the stage, it lives behind the mic too, because when the rulebook wavers, so does the entire match. But if that moment was pure confusion, the next one was pure confrontation, a match that didn't just break down over a disagreement, it nearly turned physical. When it comes to composure on stage, few players rival Gary Anderson. Calm, clinical, and famously unbothered by drama until June 2024, when a split-second decision from referee Kirk Bevins left him fuming and sparked one of the biggest officiating debates darts had seen in years. The moment came during the 2024 World Cup of Darts in Frankfurt. Anderson, playing for Team Scotland alongside Peter Wright, faced Austria in a crucial group stage clash. The match had been tight, every leg fought for until a call stopped Anderson mid-throw. As Anderson released his dart, Bevins raised his hand and ruled that the Scotsman had stepped over the oche. The raised line players must stay behind when throwing. The ruling instantly voided the dart, and the call couldn't have come at a worse time. Anderson was in full rhythm, on a finish, and visibly thrown off by the interruption. Cameras caught the disbelief on his face. He stepped back, looked toward Bevins, and muttered a few choice words under his breath. The crowd buzzed. Most fans didn't even realize what had happened. When the commentators explained the call, social media lit up with slow-motion replays. Many fans claimed Anderson's foot hadn't crossed the line at all, but Bevins stood firm. Under PDC rules, even the slightest breach, a toe touching the oche before release, counts as a foul, and according to Bevins, that's exactly what he saw. Anderson eventually finished the match, but you could see he was still boiling beneath the surface. Afterward, when asked about the incident, he didn't hold back. He said, "If darts had VAR, that would have been overturned in seconds." He went on to suggest that with so many cameras on stage, major calls like that should be reviewable, just like in football. The comment blew up online. Some fans agreed completely, arguing that modern technology could prevent controversial moments like this. Others said introducing reviews would ruin the flow of the sport, that darts should remain fast, raw, and human. Bevins, for his part, didn't publicly respond, but the PDC quietly backed his decision. Officials confirmed that oche infractions fall solely under the referee's visual judgment, and in that leg, Bevins made the correct call. Still, the debate didn't fade quickly. Clips of Anderson's foot placement were shared and slowed down frame by frame across X and YouTube. Some showed his shoe hovering right over the oche, not quite touching, but close enough to divide opinion. The moment became part of a bigger conversation about officiating in modern darts. Should referees rely purely on eyesight and instinct, or is it time for technology to step in? Even Anderson, after cooling off, admitted he respected Bevins's professionalism, but he stood by his call for modernization. Referees have it tough, but if we can get it right every time, why not? In the end, it wasn't a scandal or a shouting match, but it was a rare crack in Anderson's calm and a reminder that even in a sport built on millimeters, human judgment still decides everything. And that's what makes this clash stand out. It wasn't anger for anger's sake, it was the frustration of a perfectionist seeing technology everywhere except in the one place it could have helped him. Because when a single dart can win or lose a nation a match, one step too far can change everything. It happened at the 2020 World Matchplay quarterfinal against Glenn Durrant. Under pressure after missing doubles, Vincent van der Voort flicked his third dart underarm in frustration. That matters, because PDC divided by DRA rules require darts to be deliberately thrown in an overarm fashion, so referee Kirk Bevins immediately ruled the throw invalid. The moment halted the rhythm, triggered visible frustration from van der Voort, and became the flashpoint of the night. Right after the match, which Durrant edged 18-16 after van der Voort had led 10-5 and 12-8, Vincent argued on stage, convinced Bevins had penalized him for stepping over the oki rather than for the underarm action. Within hours, multiple outlets clarified the call. It was the underarm motion Bevins penalized, not an oki overstep. Van der Voort then apologized publicly, acknowledging the misunderstanding. Video highlights circulated, showing the late leg meltdown, 17 missed darts at double in the leg, and the illegal underarm flick underscoring why Bevins intervened. Sporting Life's clip thread captured the decisive sequence, while match reports reiterated the rule basis for Bevins' decision. In the days that followed, van der Voort doubled down on the correction. "I just misunderstood him." He explained that Bevins had pointed toward the oki, which he took as an overstep warning, but Bevins was actually signaling the underarm infringement. Van der Voort also noted he hadn't realized that specific clarification had been enforced, but ultimately conceded, if it's the rule, then of course he's right. Bevins, for his part, accepted the apology and praised the gesture, closing the book on one of the cleaner examples of a high-tension player-referee dispute that got resolved the right way, with a rules-based call, post-match clarity, and mutual respect. Darts is supposed to be simple: 3 darts, 1 board, and a referee to keep the peace. But as we've seen, even the smallest moment, a fallen dart, a miscount, a toe over the oki can spark fireworks that change everything. From Russ Bray's rare miscall that turned tension into laughter, to Michael van Gerwen's showdown over a fallen dart that froze the stage, and Kirk Bevins silencing a roaring crowd as Littler and Humphreys tried to stay focused. Every one of these moments reminds us that in darts, emotion lives right on the edge of control. Mervyn King, demanding perfection, arguing for fairness down to the millimeter. Cristo Reyes, caught in sudden death chaos as officials scrambled to fix a rules mix-up. Vincent van der Voort, convinced he'd been called for stepping over the line when it was actually that rare underarm throw that broke the rule and owning up to it later. And of course, Gary Anderson, standing his ground after being told his dart didn't count, sparking a worldwide debate about whether it's time for VAR in darts. Every one of these moments has one thing in common: pressure, not just on the players, but on the referees, the people expected to stay invisible until everything goes wrong. They're the human element in a game measured in millimeters, and one word from them can shift an entire match. Because when you strip it all down, darts isn't just about accuracy, it's about control. Control of your throw, your nerves, and sometimes your temper. So the question is, who has the harder job, the player chasing perfection or the referee trying to keep order when perfection breaks down? Drop your take in the comments. Whose side are you on when things get messy on the oki? And if you enjoyed the wildest moments where cool precision met pure chaos, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned, because the next story might prove that even in darts, no one is ever completely in control.